So who do we have here, Phil?
Well, it's John A. Lang. He was my grandfather's nephew, and he'd be my dad's first cousin. And his wife, Anna, she was a halter, and anyway,
Okay.
that's all I can say about that, you know, just how they're related to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is this, Phil?
That is a neighbor of mine, Alphonse Freilich, and he was a big help to me over the years, and I sure miss him for what you know, for that. And he just lived a half a mile from my place. And, he passed away in '91.
Do you know what he died from?
Oh, probably to do with his heart. You know, his heart gave out. And
Okay, sounds good. So Phil, can you tell us how the Hoferts are related to Frank Hofert?
well, this is Alphonse and Catherine, and they are uncle and aunt to Frank and Annie in Unity. And they used to run the grocery store in Trampoline Lake for years and years. We remember them real well for that. They were great people, eh?
And the next one over is Monica Hofert, and how is
Yes.
she related?
She would be a niece to Alphonse Hofert, eh? And
There's two more Hoferts down over here, so let's see how they are related.
well, again, this is August Hofert and his wife Annie. They are August was a brother to Alphonse, and they run the grocery store together in town there. And Annie, August's wife, was a sister to Alphonse's wife, and so there was two brothers married two sisters, or two sisters married two brothers, whichever way you want to say it.
That was pretty common back then.
Yeah, it happened once in a while.
Okay.
And again, Monica Hofert is the daughter to August and Annie.
Okay, sounds good. So Phil, is Joseph Lang related to you somehow?
Well, he's my oldest brother.
What type of a person was Joseph?
Oh, I don't know. Whatever, I guess. I don't know. He was my oldest brother. That's all I could really say. And he you know, sometimes he was a good brother, and sometimes he could be tough.
How many years older than you is he?
He was 16 years older than I. Yeah.
Were you
And
close to him when you were a kid, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, he steered me down the path many a time. He tried to tell me right from wrong. Anyway.
So did he spoil his little brother at all?
Yeah, he could have. Maybe give me more spending money sometimes than my parents did. Yeah. Anyway.
And how did he pass away?
Oh, he had heart problems, and it might have been a combination of things, eh? Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on.
Go ahead.
Phil,
Okay.
tell me who's here.
Okay, we have Andrew and Teresa Gagne, and Andrew's grandmother and my grandfather. I know Andrew's, and saying this wrong. Andrew's mother and my grandfather were brother and sister, so that made him a first cousin to my dad. And we were next door neighbors, eh, for years and years and years. And he passed away suddenly in 1981 of a heart attack.
So did you go over to his house and visit a lot when you were
Yeah,
growing
we
up?
did out in the farm. We were just a mile away, and yeah, we did that. Yeah, and Teresa, she, we were looking back there at Mrs. At John Lang, at Annie Lang, the grave just back here, and Teresa was a sister to Mrs. John Lang. Yeah, you were two cousins married two sisters there as well.
Phil, how are these people related to Rose?
Well, these are Rose's in-laws, and of course her husband's father or mother, and
Okay,
yeah.
sounds good. And there's Annie Schneider.
And Anne would be a sister to Rose's husband. And, her husband just lives, he's a good friend of mine, he just lives outside of Tramping Lake, her husband, Annie's. Yeah.
And how about Harvey over here?
Well, he's a nephew, he'd be a nephew to Fred and Rose, Harvey, and a nephew also to Annie.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, who do we have here?
Oh, we have Anton Gagne, better known as Tony, and he was also a first cousin to my dad. He would have been Andrew, a brother to Andrew, what we were just the grave we were just looking at here a little bit ago here, and they interred his daughter's ashes. She passed away out in the BC someplace, and they interred her ashes right in here in her dad's grave. And his wife is still alive, and I think she's 98 years old, and she lives in Unity, and still does lots of things for herself. Yeah.
Amazing.
And she would be an aunt to Rose Laturnis. Yeah. Mrs. Gagne. Yeah.
So Phil, who are these?
Those are my parents, Catherine and Steve Lang, and my dad died in 1958, as you'll probably read on your picture there, and my mother died in 1979, buried on Christmas Eve in the day, 1979.
Were you close to your father when you were growing up?
Well, yeah, I suppose, like most guys. Those days were a little bit different. You didn't ask too many questions, you know. You'd always kind of get the word, what do you want to know that for, eh? Things like that, you know. So, in a way, it's not the same, you know, wasn't the same as it is now. Nowadays, you're more daring at asking and that, yeah.
How old was your father when he passed away?
He was only 69.
And how old were you?
When he passed away?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe about 22.
Can you tell me a little bit about what his funeral was like?
Well, he passed away in Saskatoon, and in 1958, you didn't have undertakers. Not very many. I think maybe any came out. You done the transporting of the body yourself. I went into Saskatoon to pick him up from the funeral home myself with the truck, and brought him out to the house where they lived in town. And the wait usually is maybe 2 days, or something like that. And then was the burial. And that was in June 1958.
So did you have to help dig your father's grave back then, or I mean, who
Oh
would
yeah,
do that?
yeah. Everybody. It didn't matter who it was. Son or brother or whatever. Everybody pitched in to dig the grave.
And was that all done by hand?
Oh yes, yes. This cemetery is very hard digging with the pick and shovel. Mm-hmm.
So how many graves would you say you've dug in this cemetery?
I don't know. I lost count years ago. I remember it in 1965. We had 13 deaths, and I helped to dig 7 graves out of them 13 all by hand. Yeah. So,
this grave's headstone right here says John Lang.
Mm-hmm. Okay. His ashes are interred here, and my brother John, he was in the military. He was started in the Army, and he was in the Air Force then, and then he was also a paratrooper. And he died in 1986. He was 66 years old. And he was never married.
Will you tell me a little bit about what John did when he was in the military? Like, what do paratroopers do? And did he ever tell you any stories?
Well, I mean, paratroopers, they jump from the airplane with a parachute, eh? And he did a fair amount of that. And after the war, he went to university and he became an engineer. And he designed the first jets that were built. He helped design the wing part of the plane, eh? You know. He always said, the company is so big, everybody does a little bit. Nobody does everything, you know. Yes.
When he was in the Army or the Air Force, did he volunteer to serve?
Yes.
He did?
Yeah, it was what they called in those days joining up.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And Felix? Who was Felix?
Well, he, like we were saying back at the house, you know, he was my third oldest brother. And he's the one that spent a lot of time in the mental institution, eh? He was home the odd time. And anyway, that was a nice tall headstone, and it had a little cross on top. And it's a marble, eh? It's all a marble, and it was dropped over, and that broke off. So my dad sent it in, and they just reshaped it on top. Couldn't put the cross back on it.
How old were you when he passed away?
Oh, maybe. It could have been, I'd say, 27.
Okay. So when you were kids, did you play together at all, or?
No, I don't remember him being home that much. You know, yeah, I remember him being home, but not that we done much together. My other brothers, we had a lot of things, but then I was younger, and by that time, but I came along, they all had different ideas already for pastime and stuff like that, eh? Yeah.
They wanted to do older stuff, not play with trucks in the mud and type things, tractors and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just a way different kind of living at that time than now, eh? Yeah. Your entertainment nowadays is what, sitting on the Chesterfield watching TV. In those days, well, you maybe go and try and play a little bit of ball or go skating or something like that. And we had was the radio for entertainment otherwise.
Okay, well, where should we head to now? Phil, who are Joseph and Teresa?
Well, Joe is a cousin of mine. He is actually interned here, and his wife still lives in Saskatoon. And his wife is a sister, or not a sister, but a cousin to Frank Hofer, who you're going to meet today. Yet, and Joe's mother and my father were brother and sister.
And then over here we have Christina and Nelson.
Yeah, okay. So in here, beside them is our Joe Freilich's parents, Nels and Christina. And Christina is a sister to my dad. And Nels, he was her husband. Again, there was two brothers in that family married to two of my dad's sisters. The only two sisters that my dad had, eh? And they were married to two Freilich brothers, Stanley and Nels.
Okay. And who do we have here, Phil?
We have Christina Bond here. She was a first cousin of mine. Again, she was Nels and Christina Freilich, which is my aunt's daughter. And she died in 1965.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phil, who do we have here?
Well, that's a baby of ours that only lived from, born on the 10th April in 1956 and died on the 11th of April 1956. And he was our first born, and he was premature. Anyway,
Did he just die of complications from...
Well, yeah, he was, so tiny. Yeah, right. Yeah, so anyway, we came out here in April with induct the grave, my brother and I, and my wife was still in the hospital at the time, and we came out here with the horse and sleigh. It was about 3-4 feet of snow in the cemetery, and we dug out a place here. We didn't know, that's why it's out of line from everything, from the other graves, and because you couldn't line it up right. Anyway, and then we went back into town and got the priest, and came out here and had a funeral in the snowbank.
So who was present for the funeral?
Just my brother and I and the priest, yeah. My wife was still in the hospital, and there's no way any vehicles or anything could come out here. And it was just a private thing between us three. So, anyway, we just put a new monument down here. And after 50 years, that's how old he would be now. He'd be the oldest, eh?
So do you and Liz plan to be buried out in this cemetery?
Yes, we would like to right in here, but I don't know if it's possible. This is kind of a baby section here. But then we thought, well, but that's already taken, and they want to keep this for a trail here, eh? Down here, have a path coming in here. So I was even looking at close by, maybe back here, there's still a spot in there, but this is the new section over here, so whatever, I guess. It's all right, I guess, as long as you're in the same cemetery, I suppose. It maybe doesn't matter, but there's a few in here that aren't buried side by side, husband and wife, and it's the way. See, the old section here, it's pretty hard in some places to get in, so they just put it where it's more convenient to dig it with a backhoe now. But it's got a lot better system up further. There's lots of a place to pass, lots of room to pass through. Yeah.
This Alan Frolic, is he related?
Pardon me?
This Alan Frolic, is he related to your?
No. See, those are the ones they spell their name with an O. I don't know. They might be distant relatives to, but they're not off the same families, like.
Okay. Liz, can you please tell us about your younger sister, or your sister who passed away and that's buried out in the Revenue Cemetery?
Okay. She was going to start school, and before they thought they would get her tonsils out before school started, so that was in between the summer holidays. But she was going to only be probably 6. She was born, I think, in 1934. I should remember the date, but I guess I don't offhand. And anyway, so my dad was taking her to the hospital, and I think it was at Scott, to get her tonsils out. And here, a good, kind of a relationship through marriage, come and ask my dad at the hospital what he's doing over there. And he says, well, he brought his daughter Amelia to get her tonsils out. Well, he just about freaked out, because he knew the doctor that was going to do the surgery was drunk, he said, or drinking. So he, it was too late. They were going to stop him, but it was too late. He had already done the surgery, and she never come out of it, and that's how she died. But the theory is maybe he gave her too much chloroform, and she never did come out of it. Or could have she been allergic to something, what they gave her? This is still a mystery today.
And what's your sister's name?
Amelia Rissling.
And can you tell us a little bit about your brother who's also buried at the Revenue Cemetery?
Yeah, Donald Anthony, he was the baby. I think there'd have been 10 of us in the family, but there's 8 survived. He was sick when he was born. He always cried and cried, so finally they decided to send him, I guess, to Saskatoon, where there's better, bigger hospitals and maybe more facilities to try and, find out what's wrong. And so before my mother was going to take him on the train to Saskatoon, us little kids went with mom and dad to see them off. And I guess, so we got in the hospital and we could hear this baby crying, like upstairs. There was a level maybe for the smaller kids. And I wanted to go up, follow mom upstairs to see him, and the nurse says, no, I was too little, we weren't allowed to go up to see him. But yet he is really crying in pain, and and me always trying to, I don't know what you call it, nosy maybe, to see. No, but I think I really wanted to see the baby, because I hadn't seen him before. And when that nurse looked the other way, there was a lot of stairs going up. I snuck up fast, and she come after me, but she didn't get me. But then I knew where the voice was, the baby crying, so I run to where the room was. So I got to see him and I got to touch him. And he cried in such pain. And the nurse was so nice. She was trying to comfort him and so he wouldn't cry. And then I seen my mom take him. And that's the last I seen of him. That was very hard.
How old were you?
I could have been, I think, about 4. Like, she'd be, like, she was in between my sister, like my sister Helen, then Amelia, then me, so we were kind of in the middle of the whole family. I don't know why I have to cry, but when you think back, it hits you, I guess.
We appreciate you sharing the stories with us.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about their funerals?
Yeah, like it was Donald Anthony always in winter. He was born in January, but I'm sure it was only about a month and maybe a half. I have the history at home, but I just can't remember totally offhand. Yeah, we were all standing like on the open porch outside. They took a family picture, and which I'd have headed home too, but just not enough time for everything. And it was cold. We were all dressed, and it was good years ago when things happened. They always took the whole family picture, and all the neighbors, they come like always, for support and visit. And it was hard for them too, especially when they're little kids, that pass away.
Okay. Thank you so
Well,
much.